All right, what's up, family? We're gonna get right into this on my favorite topic: AI, automation, the future, making money, all that good stuff. Right now, we're listening to Myron King, I believe. Let me make sure I get my brother's name right. Myron Golden. Golden. My bad, brother. You're gonna help us break this down. Let's get started. Ain't gonna talk too much. No more talk.
This is AI taking your customers. If you've been worried about that, on this video, Get Rich with AI, in the age of AI, Get Rich in the Age of AI, or how to keep AI from like destroying your business or destroying your life or destroying your future, this video is for you. I believe that the greatest danger to your financial future is you attempting to make a living in the past. And I would guess that upwards of...
Let me stop it right here. I ain't gonna stop it too much. He just hit the point right there. You know, the past is the past, the future is the future, whatever may have you, but don't, if you are attempting to, if you gonna keep working, unless you're about to retire, it's so key and essential for you to be up to date and up to speed on today's tools and technology. I don't understand how somebody expects to make big money or to live, to create the life they want to live, and they stuck in the past, not turning the corner with technology. We all have those people in our lives that just feel like, they just don't want to. They kind of have their phone and things like that, but they act like they too cool to get caught up with the technology. Oh, that's just for the kids. That social media and that AI stuff is for the kids. I ain't with that. Well, unless you want to be a broke ass dinosaur, it's best to pay attention to read the writing on the wall and see that if you're gonna be competitive in the work force or as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, now and in the future, you got to turn the corner on getting up to speed on today's technology, which includes artificial intelligence. It's here, it's not coming, it's here, and automation. And you mix artificial intelligence with automation, combine it with the algorithms of social media, you got a gold mine. Let me let them finish breaking it down.
80% of people are attempting to make a living in the past. And the reason... It's fascinating.
How many percent? 80%.
The reason we it's fascinating how we get stuck there. The reason we stay in the place where we're attempting to make a living in the past is because times change so fast that things that used to take centuries, now those changes happen like around the world in a year, sometimes even in a month. Right? It's just absolutely insane. And the other reason is because our mind is an energy hog. Our brain is an energy hog. And so what we'll do is we will use as much of our brain as possible to keep things the same, because now I don't have to use up a whole lot of energy to figure out how to make them different. And so what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to show you how by utilizing the understanding of where we are and who you are, you can capitalize on the AI era instead of being just absolutely wiped out by it. And so I started this video about 15 minutes ago, and we had some kind of technical snafu that we've never had. And so clearly this lesson is a lesson that's going to be hyper beneficial to you. So when I think about why people struggle, I believe that if you don't understand the history of wealth, you cannot solve the mystery of wealth. And I know I've taught this before, but I'm going to teach it again, because if you'll just hang in there with me, I promise you, when I bring this all together at the end, you will understand what is the most valuable skill for you to work on, the two most valuable skills for you to work on in the age of AI that'll keep you from getting left behind. Okay, so the history and mystery of wealth. I'm going to talk about that first. So the history and mystery of wealth works like this. from the beginning of time to the mid 1700s, the economic infrastructure of the world was based on agriculture or land. So it was the agricultural age. And in the agricultural age, the people who owned the land owned the wealth because land equaled wealth. And the people who owned the land owned the wealth. And if you didn't own land, if you were born into a family that didn't own land, you were born poor. And if you were born into a family that owned land, you were born wealthy. And people would use their land for raising crops. People would use their land for raising cattle, right? So, but the people who owned the land didn't work the land. The people who owned the land would hire peasants. That's what they were called. They would hire peasants, people who didn't own land, to come farm the land for them. The peasants would work the fields. They would bring the wealth to the landlord, the lord over the land, and then they would be able to keep enough to stay strong enough to work the land again another year, right? And so it was a society where wealth was perpetuated amongst the wealthy and poverty was perpetuated among the poor. There was no middle class. For literally thousands of years.
Not that much really
the whole
changed.
idea of a middle class didn't even exist. And so in the agricultural age, things changed very slowly. You were probably born in a town, grew up in a town, lived in a town, died in a town, and maybe never even visited another town the whole time you were alive, right? You certainly didn't go visit other countries. That wasn't a thing. I'm getting ready to go on vacation. I'm going to go to these different countries. That was not a thing, going to different countries.
Yeah, no.
People didn't do that. We take so much for granted today, right? So in the agricultural age, land equal wealth, change happened very slowly. And whatever your station was in life when you were born would probably be your station in life when you died, unless you were born wealthy and then some powerful nation came, conquered your nation, and took all your land. And now you went from being rich to being poor because you had the wealth, but you didn't have the warfare. And so in the agricultural age, land equal wealth, change happened very slowly, and you wouldn't really expect to see a whole lot of changes in your lifetime. So people got used to doing the same thing. So they knew what worked yesterday would work today, and they knew what worked today would work tomorrow. And then in the mid 1700s, from the mid 1700s, you know what? Let me do that in a different color so you guys don't get bored with colors. For those of you who can see them, okay. In the mid 1700s to around the 1950s, we moved from the agricultural age into the industrial age, because during the industrial age, people started inventing things to make farming the land easier. They started making machines, which in the industrial age, machines equaled wealth, and the people who owned the machines owned the wealth. Now, here's the interesting thing. The industrial age made wealth creation by people who were born poor for the first time in world history a possibility. Somebody could be born poor and invent a machine, or work with a machine, or collaborate with somebody who invented a machine, and they could change their station in life from poor to rich.
The new technology of the time.
People became mega wealthy. People who were born poor, people like Rockefeller, people like Henry Ford, people like J.P. Morgan, people like Dale Carnegie. Born poor, died rich. Lived rich, died rich. Perpetuated wealth for their family, some of them for generations. So machines equal wealth. Well, the interesting thing about the industrial age was the people who invented the industrial age, the people who developed or grew up in the industrial age, they were always attempting to figure out how they could make more money, and they figured out if they would standardize production and manufacturing, they could make more money. But did you know, I think it was Smith & Wesson, did you know that this gun manufacturer, I'm pretty sure it was Smith & Wesson, are the ones who created the concept of standardized production? Because what they had was 15 dudes making guns, but all the dudes had their own way of making guns. And so the parts from one gun didn't fit another gun because all these different people had different ways of making guns. And they said, you know what? This doesn't make sense. Why don't we just have one person create barrels and another person create stocks and another person create and they triggers. And so what happened was all of the parts became interchangeable. And then that eventually became the standard for manufacturing. And so in the industrial age, people created machines to manufacture machines. People created machines to farm the land. People created machines to distribute all the stuff that people were manufacturing and all the crops people were growing. Like the railroad was big. The automobile industry, the airplane industry, all of these things were created in the industrial age. But the other thing that the industrial age moguls created, they didn't just want to standardize manufacturing. They wanted to standardize manufacturing employees who could work in their factories. So they gave big grants to education, to train people to become employees in their factories. The educational system, the way it exists today, is an industrial age idea, even though the industrial age basically came to an end in the mid-1950s. So think about that. The industrial age came to an end 75 years ago, but the education was created by people in that era for the way they wanted life to work in that era. And it no longer serves us. And it no longer serves our children. It didn't really serve our children then. It served the people who created it. And one of the things about the industrial age that's so prevalent,
pause right there. So still working on an old model that has been outdated since the 1950s. The idea of training a workforce to work within your factories, on your machines. And so that's still being pressed out today. But it's turning. So let's get on.
And still people believe, and it literally holds so much power over people, is that in the industrial age was a very permission-based society. And what does that mean? That means if you wanted to do something, someone who owned a machine had to believe that you had the ability to do it. And if they didn't believe you had the ability to do it, they wouldn't let you do it. They wouldn't let you use your machines to do it. For instance, let's say you believed you were articulate enough to write a book. It didn't matter unless a publishing company that owned printing presses believed you were good enough to write a book. And so you had to get permission from a publishing company to be an author. If you could sing, or you thought you could sing, you had to go through a record label who had recording equipment, who could record your voice and then distribute it to the masses. And if they didn't believe you could sing, it didn't matter if you thought you could sing. It didn't even matter if millions of people thought you could sing. Because you had no way of multiplying and duplicating your voice and putting it out there for the masses. Right? And so everything that you wanted to do, someone else controlled it.
Social media, Instagram.
One of the funniest things I ever see, shows like America's Got Talent, American Idol, all these shows where people are competing for 4 judges to give them permission to do a thing. That's so fascinating to me. When people like Adele, people like Taylor Swift, people like Russell Simmons have already proven you can create your own audience. And you don't need permission from an industrial age record label to
basically act as a gatekeeper to package your voice, package your talent up, and charge you or take a percentage from you for distribution. That's old hat. You know, a lot of people aren't realizing. You have the tools that we didn't have in the 80s and 90s to create, press, market your own business and talent. It would have took thousands of dollars in the 90s to get the type of exposure that we get for free, just like right now, I'm talking to you for free on social media. I'm probably going to post this on YouTube, probably going to post this on X, probably going to post this on Instagram, Facebook, split it up, 25 different ways, and it's all for free. Free exposure. This is what we don't want to miss out on as we turn in even more into the automation age.
You as a singer, you don't need permission from Hollywood to make you an actor. I mean, look at Tyler Perry. He built a billion-dollar empire that started with him selling VHS tapes out of the trunk of his car when he was homeless, because he was operating from a totally different paradigm than the industrial age paradigm. So what happened next? Well, the 1950s to 1978, we went from the industrial age, we went to the distribution age. And in the distribution age, outlets equaled wealth. And here's the interesting thing about that. equaled wealth. And when I say outlets equaled wealth, this is when department stores, malls, infomercials, multi-level
Okay.
marketing, direct sales, all of these industries, for lack of a better word, popped up, and we had new millionaires. In fact, like, think about this. John D. Rockefeller was the richest man in the world back in the early 1900s. Carnegie was another one who eventually became the richest man in the world. But during the distribution age, Sam Walton was the richest man in the world. Distribution. We sell cheap stuff cheap. I mean, good stuff cheap, sorry. All right? So distribution, right, through Walmart. Like, I was a grown man before I ever heard of Walmart. I was a full-grown man because it was, like, really prominent in the South. Like, when I met my wife, this was in 1982. I met my wife, and she wasn't my wife. I met this girl, and went to Texas to stay with her. I stayed in her youth pastor's house and met her family. And she said, I got to go to Walmart. Well, what's Walmart? I never heard of it. Like, I knew about Kmart, but I never heard of Walmart. Sam Walton was the richest man in the world by
Did not
far.
know that.
He was, like, so rich that when he died, his wife and children became the second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth wealthiest people in the world when they split up his wealth among them, when Bill Gates became number one. Why? Because Sam Walton created wealth in the era in which he lived. There's not a lot of wealth advice that I can give you that's going to be better than, if you're serious, not just curious about creating wealth, you must create wealth in the era in which you live. Like, there are very few things that I can tell you that are as important as, if you're serious, not just curious about creating wealth, you have to create wealth in the era in which you live and stop attempting to earn a living in the past. Okay. So in the distribution age, outlets equal wealth, and people own the outlets, own the wealth. What happened in 1978? 1978 to 1994.
We went into the 90s. What happened in the 90s? We got the
It's interesting too.
first
how Sam
computers,
Walton
first whiff of technology.
Ushered in the technology age. A lot of people don't realize that. But Sam Walton, what he did was he would go to IBM and recruit computer programmers, and he would recruit them to Walmart so that they could create software that would track his inventory so he could know what he was getting low on before he got low on it. Right? And so in the technology age, what I call tech -know -how equaled wealth. So tech know-how equaled wealth. And the people who had who knew how to use technology to make, knew how to use technology to create new ways of leveraging information, those are the people who own the wealth. Then we went from the technology age, 1994 to 2003, we went into what I call the information age. The information age. And in the information age, the interesting thing about the information age, this is the first time in world history where you could create wealth without having to own something. Because you can't own information. Who owns information? No, everybody and nobody. Information is public domain.
And peep how much shorter, and I don't know how it's coming across. I'm got it spit right here. Peep how much shorter these time periods get. This is how fast progress works. Here, 1700s to 1950s, damn near 200 years. Then you got the 50s to 78. That's just 28 years. Then 78 to 94. That's just not even 20 years. 94 to 2003, 9 years. And you just skip to a whole nother wealth vehicle. Whole nother way people are making wealth. Top way people are transforming from poverty to wealth. In just the 9 years. Here we up to 2023, just here. So that'll give you an idea of how fast it's moving today.
Sky is blue. Who owns that? Everybody. Nobody. Grass is green. Who owns that? Everybody. Nobody. It's just information. So wealth was no longer about control. It was no longer about ownership. It was now about control. And now it's the people who control the flow of information. Those are the people who own the wealth. And so back in this time, I knew people, so I'm going to call people controlled info flow equal wealth. I knew people back during this age who had Google AdSense pages who would have a website and all they had on was links. They were making $100,000 a month, $200,000 a month, $300,000 a month, $400,000 a month because every time somebody came to one of those pages and clicked on a link, Google would share the revenue with them. And they were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in late 90s, early 2000s because they earned their wealth in the era in which they lived. 2003, the world changed forever.
All right, let me pause. We're going to break it up. We'll get into 2003. We're going to do a part 2 on this. I don't want to overrun it. Make sure we get out of this.